MIT and Harvard Square, Big James Curley, Mr. Mayor. Boston College, Old BU, Cardinal Cushing, Find a Pew. Cream Pie Beans in Fenway Park, Ruth and Williams lit the spark. Marathon on Patriots Day, sunlight shining on Cape Cod Bay. Beacon Street and Bunker Hill, Filene's Basement fits the bill. Lock O'Burs and Durgan Park, Copley Plaza after dark. Boston Latin, codfish cakes. Pack your car, 3-day wakes. Crispus Atticus, Paul Revere, Boston Pops right in your ear. Dorchester, Old Faneuil Hall, Spencer's gonna hire 'em all. Clusie, Bird, and Auerbach. The Celtics make the Garden rock. The Battling Bruins, Bobby Orr, the Minutemen who went to war. Boston Common, Ritz Hotel, this old town wears so well. Needham, Dedham, Quincy, Milton, Cambridge, Brookline, Waltham, Newton. Old North Church, Back Bay Station, this is where they formed the nation. JFK and Tip O'Neill, Carr Yastrzemski, what a deal. A country club, lest we forget, the daring do of young we met. Boston, Boston, Boston town, Boston, Boston going down. Hubba, hubba, hubba town, Boston, Boston going round. Anyone for tea? Yes, Boston, Massachusetts. New England's capital town, the Athens of the West, hub city of the Red Sox, Celtics, and Bruins, and this year's host for the United States Open. ABC Sports begins coverage of the United States Open Golf Championship. From the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts, it's the United States Open Preview Show. The Country Club is located in the cozy suburb of Brookline, 7 miles from downtown Boston, a leafy town that has sheltered the young John F. Kennedy and today houses Larry Bird and Governor Michael Dukakis, among others. Most U.S. Opens are not played at country clubs. They're played at the Merion Golf Club or the Wingfoot Golf Club or the Olympic Club. But the USGA was correct in returning to the Country Club because it is a rich repository of American sporting lore. The Country Club had been in existence for 11 years before they laid out the first holes for golf at a cost of $50. But through the years, golf has become a welcome and historic feature of this club in the country that began life as a place for families, a simple restaurant, bedrooms, race meetings, and occasionally music in the afternoon. So said its major organizer, J. Murray Forbes, a Boston merchant. The Country Club was a charter member of the USGA in 1894. 6 of its members have been presidents of that ruling body. Many more have been members of its executive committee. Over the years, 13 United States Golf Association-related events have been staged here, so its position in the fabric of American golf is considerable. This will be the 3rd U.S. Open to be played at the Country Club, but by far the most remembered was the first, held in 1913 when American golf grew up, when the United States played David to Great Britain's Goliath. It is difficult to describe today the impact of Ouimet's victory over Varden and Ray. If today, a sophomore at one of our golfing colleges defeated by Asteris and Norman for the U.S. Open in a playoff, it would be big news, but not as shattering as Francis's win over the British Titans. With that victory, American golf began its journey to world dominance. In 3 years, 14-year-old Bobby Jones would appear on the scene at Merion. And on that rainy Saturday in 1913, 3 male babies had just celebrated, or were about to, their first birthdays. Their names were Hogan, Nelson, and Snead. But the Open of 1913 was only one arrow in the quiver of the Country Club. Its members included Mrs. Hazel Hotchkiss Whiteman, the tennis champion, who donated the Whiteman Cup to that sport, and the Mrs. Margaret and Harriet Curtis, both women amateur golf champions, who began the Curtis Cup competition for women between Great Britain and the United States. The sport of curling was first played indoors in the United States under the auspices of the Country Club. And the pond that lurks beyond the 3rd green was where Miss Tenley Albright would skate on winter evenings, preparing for the 1956 Olympics, where she won the gold medal. 50 years after the Ouimet victory, the Open returned to Brookline, and as in 1913, there was a playoff, this time among 3 Americans. Julius Boris defeated Jackie Cupid and Arnold Palmer. Now, 75 years after the boy across the street tweaked the British Lion's tail, the Open comes once more to the Country Club. where occasionally there is music in the afternoon. And we certainly expect to have a lot of music here on the Sunday afternoon of the final round. And here's a gentleman that might be providing some of that music. Jack, you played here as an amateur. You played here as defending champion in the Open 25 years ago, and you haven't been back since. What's the course look like to you?
Well, Jack, I just finished my first practice round here, or first round on the golf course in 25 years. And coming here, I didn't really expect to remember much of it. And there's been a couple of changes on the golf course, but oddly enough, I remembered every shot as I played the golf course. I remembered after I got there where I was supposed to play it, how I was supposed to play it. And it's a very old-style golf course. It's a golf course that we don't see many of these kind of golf courses today. The young kids that are coming here will have never seen this kind of a golf course. It's a long golf course. It's got only 3 par 3s. The par 3s are all about the same length and all about the same shot values, all relatively small greens. The par 5s, unless we have a wind off the ocean, both par 5s are going to be 3-shot holes. We have 9 par 4s over 430 yards. It's a par 4 golf course. It's a golf course that you must drive the ball in the fairway. It's a golf course that you're going to have long irons to the green. The greens are small. It's going to be a very difficult golf course to get up and down. Par has always been a precious commodity in the U.S. Open, and the last few years the USGA has had to work to try to preserve par. I don't think they're going to have to work here at all. Par has never been broken, and I really think that they're going to have to play awfully good golf to break par here this week.
All right, we're going to get a little more specific about that and have you show us some shots out here on a few of the holes, and we'll have that right after this. The United States Open Preview Show is brought to you by the investment firm of Smith Barney. They make money the old-fashioned way. They earn it. And by Michelob, so exceptionally smooth. The night belongs to Michelob. This is the 3rd hole at the Country Club at Brookline with the pond behind the green, and we're in the fairway here. Jack, for second shots at the U.S. Open, I've been reading an awful lot about how you have to put a lot of spin on the ball.
Well, Jack, I don't necessarily think spin is really the issue in a U.S. Open, because when you hit a shot with a lot of spin, the ball hits, takes a bounce forward, and then starts to catch. Yes, spin is fine, but I think that more important than spin is be able to throw the ball up into the air, have it come down softly on the green, so that it doesn't advance forward on a first big jump. And here at the 3rd hole, for instance, this is a hole that is very typical of many holes on this golf course. You have trouble 40, 50 yards short of the green, but you have a clean bounce-in approach. So you have an option whether to throw the ball all the way in or bounce the ball in. And this hole here is 448 yards. To drive the ball, again, as many holes on this golf course are, if you drive the ball in the right place, you can see everything that happens. If you miss the fairway to the right here, you're behind a mound. If you miss it to the fairway to the left here, you're behind a mound. So this is quite typical, again, of this golf course. Now, if the pin were in the front of this green, the type of shot that I would try to play here is to hit the ball up in the air and throw it all the way to the hole. I wouldn't worry about bouncing it in. Now, to play a ball up in the air, what I try to do, Jack, is that I open the club face slightly so that I get a little bit more elevation on the shot. I move the ball just slightly up in my stance so I'll catch a little bit more on the upstroke. Now, I have to be very careful as not to move forward on the ball because I have it up. So I have to make sure I keep my head back. This should throw the ball up in the air, and of course, with a slightly open club face, it'll probably produce a slight fade, which again makes the ball drop a little bit softer. So let's see if I can do that here. Club face slightly open, ball slightly up in my stance. Everything else is very normal, normal golf swing. Stay nicely behind the ball. Throw it up in the air and watch the ball just drop slightly to the right. No, I like that one.
Can't do it much better than that, Jack.
No, I really can't, Jack, and I feel very fortunate that, that I could make that shot at that time because it's going to be an important shot for me during the tournament. Now, the other shot, and when the pin is in the back part of the screen, with that road and the water behind the green, it's a very dangerous thing to be throwing the ball in there, and the chances of it not stopping are probably pretty good. So with the approach short of the screen, And we have about half and half on this golf course. Half of the holes you have to carry it in, such as the 18th hole, and half the holes you can bounce it in, such as this hole. I would usually take a little bit more club. I would choke the club slightly down, play it just a tad back in my stance, and try to hit a little bit lower, but try to pick the ball so I don't put any spin on it. And I'll show you what I do. Now to play the little lower shot and bounce in, I go down on the shaft slightly, close the club face just slightly, move the ball back just a touch in my stance, and now I'm going to try to stay very high on the ball and hit a very thin shot so that the ball will run and hit and release when it hits the ground. Now that's the way I can get the ball in the back part of the green.
Well, Jack, you've shown us two ways you can beat this course. I guess there are a few others, too, aren't there?
Well, Jack, I think you need all the shots to win the U.S. Open.